Look for the premiere of the movie Batman and Jesus, produced in collaboration with King's Tower Productions as part of Mythinformation Conference 4 on September 30th, 2017. In audience for the Batman and Jesus movie premiere include Seth Andrews, creator and host of The Thinking Atheist, atheist celebrity Aaron Ra, Mythicist scholar Dr. Richard Carrier, Naked Mormonism podcast creator and host Bryce Blankenagel, CEO of Atheist Republic Allie Jackson, and a slew of other guests. The Mythinformation Conference will include the very exciting buzzed belief debate titled Islam in the Age of Trump between Asra Nomani and Faisal Saeed al-Mutar that will be moderated by Matt Dillahunty. The conference will also include a lineup of speakers such as London-based YouTube juggernaut Sargon of Akkad, also YouTube sensations Armored Skeptic and Shoe on Head, and Global Humanist Secular Movement editor Melissa Chen. We will also be hosting a special VIP party where VIP ticket holders will be privy to a private presentation by Ron Miscavige, father of David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, on his experience with Scientology during and after his escape. To learn more or to purchase tickets for Mythinformation Conference 4, visit us at mythicistmilwaukee.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome to Mythinformed with Brian and Dimitri. Today on the show, we have talented writer, blogger, illustrator, and TED rockstar Tim Urban. He is a Harvard graduate and successful entrepreneur, the genius behind the wildly popular Wait But Why site, and by popular, I mean 1 million unique hits this month. You might also have seen him in his TED Talk on procrastination, which has nearly 14 million views. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and Tim, did you? I watched that TED Talk, which was remarkable, by the way. Did you really do your thesis in 3 days?
I did. It was a bad time. I had a bad time.
Wow, and I love how you were like, and you got an A, and like I was like, holy shit, man, this guy. I was green with envy when you said that, but of course it was a plant.
I wonder if the folks at Harvard called you afterwards and said, you know what, we're gonna have to reconsider.
Yeah, it was kind of like a culmination of 4 years of me kind of doing everything at the very last minute, and it was just it was a I became a caricature of myself. But
no,
yeah,
it's brilliant the way you categorize the instant gratification monkey. Which is kind of blowing it off, doing the things that you want to do. Probably not just playing video games, but probably researching all this science stuff, and then the panic monkey comes.
Panic monster.
Is he not a monkey? See, I had them all as monkeys.
You have to get the right nomenclature.
He might as well be a monkey, but yeah,
he's the one that throws feces at you.
So, speaking of procrastination, we knew about this interview for a few months. And guess when we prepped for it.
Well, I've been listening. Actually,
there you go.
You've been when the first one I got was the TED Talk. So I thought if I don't do something in advance, like I'm really going to be nailed. So actually, you were my gardening help. I brought you out there and we dug holes together, and I learned about AI and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh, good.
But first, I wanted to talk about a successful entrepreneur. Like, Wait But Why isn't only what you do. You actually have your own company, Arbor Bridge, that creates. It's almost like a Kaplan of sorts, or maybe a better version where it's a SAT test prep firm, and you've got some of the highest scores in the country. Tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get into that?
Well, it was a side job. I was tutoring students in LA after college, while trying to start kind of some other kind of career, film scoring career, maybe possibly a writing career. And those things were icky and hard and undefined and amorphous. And I didn't really, the stakes were high, and it was much easier to just dig into my side job, which is working with students after school. Mm-hmm. And so I dug in and ended up procrastinating so hard on those other things. I started a full tutoring company, which then took over my life for like 5 or 6 years, and it was great. I mean, I had fun. I loved, working with the people we hired and all of that. But I at some point decided I had to get back to kind of like, doing something a little more creative. So I started, writing again about 4 years ago. It's just kind of a classic kind of small business. It's, we have about 20 full-time employees and then, a few hundred part-time tutors. And you just kind of build it organically. We never raise money. It's just kind of hire one person. And when you eventually can get to enough to hire someone else, do that. And you kind of just keep going from there because it's kind of a business with very low overhead. So it was something that, I just kind of learned on the job with my business partner. And we had fun doing it. It's I think it's a really cool experience to kind of start a small business and grow it and all the things that entails.
Yeah. I got to believe you're a good tutor. You have a knack for breaking things down really, really well. So the average person can kind of read them. Also, if you're maybe even smarter than average, there's more in it. These are definitely, sometimes TDLR, you don't write super short stuff but it's great. So you can grab a lot or a little depending on what you want.
Yeah, with tutoring and you don't have the opportunity to write 40,000 words to the student. That would be weird. So you're confined to kind of the working in the session. So it's good. It forced me to kind of to be as concise as possible. And I did like working with students. I think it's a great a really like gratifying and interesting activity. And you work with so many different kinds of students that they all it's like you quickly kind of learn that there's the actual material that they're learning, and they often haven't had someone explain that to them in a way that they just truly get the core of it, so that they then can build upon that. And they're always just memorizing the words that they're supposed to that the teacher said. But then beyond that, there's also all of this kind of psychology in every single student. A lot of them, that's just there's confidence issues, or there's they're just there's always something behind low motivation. There's usually just low confidence behind that, or there's just different ways they have to frame what they're doing. Or so I just found it really interesting to kind of dig into the psychology of each student and figure out, it was like every student that was struggling was just a puzzle, and there's always an explanation. And it's never that the kid's a bad kid, it's always, or that they just don't care. There's always something much more sympathetic than that once you dig in. So I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think it's not that different than what I'll often do today, which is both try to explain stuff, but also try to kind of get to the bottom of like our psychology and why we are the way we are.
Yeah, and you're really well known for your random factoids, like $241 trillion of wealth stacked. $1 bill high reaches the moon. If the sun was a ping pong ball in New York City, then the nearest star would be a ping pong ball in Atlanta. Those are incredibly visual ways of understanding complex topics. Is that incorporated into some of the learning material, or is that some of the nuggets of knowledge you reserve for your blog?
Yeah, I definitely love those kind of things. I just look at it myself. When I procrastinate on my own, I'm often just going, with the calculator, figuring out, how much farther the sun is away than the moon, and, doing things like, whatever, all these, I can just do that all day. And so
you figure them out yourself. You're not pulling them from any source.
It depends. I often will hear something like the 241 trillion, like I read that stat somewhere, and tried to verify it as close as I could. And then that was something I read. And then other things, I'll often try to, like, I figured out, I took the fact that there are 7.3 billion people in the world. And I also took about the amount of, physical space a human takes up. And then I just played with that for an entire post about, how, if we all stood in a line, how many times we go around the earth, if we all were in a square standing, what if we were stacked in a cube, like in a building? And so that's just me with a calculator, just dicking around. And I always, and then, if you just do that enough, you end up with like a bunch of factoids up your sleeve. I think I just posted an Instagram yesterday that was one of these that was, there's been 108. Let me actually pull up the exact thing. There's been 108 billion people that have ever lived, and 7.3 billion are alive today. So that's like there's about 100 billion dead people total. And so about 1 out of 15 people who have ever lived is alive today. But then also I think cool is that only one of those 15, only one of the other 15 was since the dawn of recorded time. So I'm not explaining that well, but basically there's more people alive today than have died since the dawn of recorded history, 5,500 years ago. So like, yeah. So if you start when writing begins 5,500 years ago, half the people that have lived since then are currently alive. It's just like, I love those things. Mm-hmm. And it also not just because it's just kind of cool, but because it orients me. Like it helps me if I'm thinking about prehistory. And if you think, since the dawn of writing, 3,500 BC would be way before the pyramids. There must have been, 100 times as many people alive as there are today. If you think that, then when you think about the past, you're going to have a distorted view. Like, you think of the Roman Empire, and you're going to think about the Mongols, and you're going to think about Alexander the Great and all of this stuff, and you're just going to assume it was an Earth like it is today, but it wasn't. It was like the equivalent of like one country today of people, basically.
I think you mentioned in one of your posts how it's impossible to be on all the time and to orient yourself all the time. You have to be constantly thinking about how small we are, where we are in proportion to time, history. It's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah. I think I think eventually these things, the research or factoids or just a lot of thought about something, reading about something, I think it adds up and it starts to just give you a general, like somewhat better picture of reality.
Yeah.
And none of us have a very good picture of reality. It's just our brains are not built to wrap our heads around reality. That wasn't useful in our survival in the past. But what we want to create our own reality that best allows us to survive. So we're not really we're underdogs in trying to have a clear picture of reality. And I think at least making sure that you kind of like just get some of the general basic facts right, I think helps at least.
Yeah, and I think you get into reality. You sound like a very smart 7-year-old. You said you were raised in kind of a reformed Jewish household that celebrated Christmas and Easter, which I think is awesome. And then at some point you've learned dragons are fake, but dinosaurs are real. Kings and princesses are real, but not wizards and fairies. And you start taking this view of like, all right, if I can't prove it, then it's bullshit or it's fake. Did I categorize that correctly?
Yeah, I started to just get very skeptical and realize that that it was disappointing. But it's like, oh, okay, like I got very cynical, and I said, probably most things I'm being told are fake. And even when I would hear about dinosaurs, I would then hear, when I was really young, they didn't really the theory of the asteroid wasn't really established as fact as it is now more. And so I remember hearing, we don't really know how they died. And then I hear, 5 years later, well, no, we're pretty sure they did. And so I'm hearing conflicting stories. And every time I would learn something from scientists or from science, then that would change your history. And then you hear another account and you realize that it's not that the scientists are lying. It's that we just don't know very much. And so when you hear something, you're hearing it from a flawed species with limited information. And that, you should always be skeptical of the pure factual truth of anything you're learning, and kind of assume that you're always chasing truth, that you haven't found it. And this is talking about even when you're chasing things like science and history, let alone like things where people are fully lying to you, openly lying to you, like often, which happens in, what happens in politics or sometimes history or, religion, and other things. So yeah, I think that's just an important thing to always keep with you, is that you're chasing reality and you're never going to fully get there. You can just get a little closer.
Mm-hmm. And that was relatively early on in your writing career, so to speak. So you started Wait But Why back in 2013, and this kind of more non-belief religion post came out in 2014. So we love how you just threw that reveal out, kind of, not candidly in any way. Did you second guess yourself before you published it, like thinking about any backlash or kind of what public perception would be?
Not really, because first of all, I just know my readers pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And the type of people, like I write long things with a lot of nuance and a lot of spectrums and a lot of questions. And the people that really like that stuff, they think like me. They like the fact that I'm not acting certain. They like the fact that we're exploring the edges and the gray areas. And those kinds of people, it's not that they're all, agnostic or atheist, but they tend to appreciate at least they appreciate a wide diversity of viewpoints. And so most of my readers, I think, are not particularly religious. So of course not going to be a problem with them. But I think most of my religious readers, and I think there definitely are a bunch of them, I think they're also nuanced thinkers, and they're open-minded, at least about, the kind of people they talk to. They're fine with others not agreeing with them. They're not religious in a scary zealot-like way. They're religious in a private and still open-minded way when it comes to a lot of other things. So I would say 96% of my readers fall into those categories. And those people, none of those are going to have a problem with me saying anything honest in the blog, especially if I'm saying, the message in that post was that my certainty about being an atheist, in one way at least, I was saying was not wise, and that actually, being more agnostic is, I think, a wiser thing. Although I have to, I would need to clarify that doesn't mean agnostic about the world's current religious texts. It means agnostic about, what the really big picture, how we, what is going on in the universe? Are there smarter, intelligent species? Might one of them have planted us here? Might the universe be an illusion, and it's actually kind of a hologram type thing that we think we see something? There's so much we don't know that I think, of course, to say I know exactly, there's no creator of us. Well, no, a smarter species in another planet could have definitely created us. It could be a simulation. Anyone who talks about the simulation kind of arguments, they're being very agnostic, right? And they're saying I don't know. But what we often conflate is that we say agnosticism. We assume that means that I'm saying, yeah, the Quran might be true, the Bible might be true, the Torah might be true. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that any more than I'm saying Santa Claus might be real. So to me, those are stories invented by humans that don't know any more than I do, and they're acting certain about them, which I can say almost for sure, then those people are not correct, or not people I'm going to look to for truth. So I made that distinction, and I just think that by the time I get to the end of that, very few people who like Wait But Why are going to be angry. Some will disagree, but when you write with a level of humility, and you write with you write just candidly, I think that there's a certain kind of person that's never going to be mad at you for that, and I think most of my readers are that kind of person. Now, then, of course, there's a ton of people that will be furious at you for that, and those are very dogmatic thinkers who don't like spectrums, who don't like gray area, who don't like long, nuanced things. They like very clear-cut, crisp confirmation of what they already believe. And when you challenge that, those people get very, very hostile and angry. And if you can look at the comment section of that post, very few people are acting like that because, again, those people don't read Wait But Why.
That did jump out at me because I scrolled down to the bottom specifically to see what was going on, and I was baffled at how civil the discourse was. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's true. Is that you have a very solid reader base,
and I think the way you dealt with it too. You in cartoon form, you kind of have one guy who seems to be the religious priest of sorts, but he has kind of religious books. The other guy is the scientist, and they're kind of talking back and forth. And the religious guy is saying, but as the scientist is finding fire and finding gravity, finding evolution. He's like, people don't like your books because they make life uncertain. They like certainty. These books make me
Right.
feel safe, even though the scientists are saying, but they're fighting over the books. And I thought, you get at it. That's a fair way to deal with it. You're copying to that. Yes, religion does make a lot of people feel safe, and I just thought that was an excellent. That cartoon is great.
Well,
It's
you use
good
a
read.
brilliant quote. You say, religion grabs people by the fear and pulls them into its bosom of definitive answers and immortality.
Yes, that is exactly what I think. I think it's a comfort. It's a comforting lie for all of us who are scared. We're all scared, or at least we're all I don't know anyone who's that pleased or with kind of just being a mortal human. Even if they maybe say they are. If someone could extend their life by 40 years with a health diet, I mean, I don't know how many people that wouldn't take it. So it's scary being a human, and religion is kind of a snake oil, I think. Now, I don't need, again, to clarify, I don't think religion is inherently bad. Actually, the point of that cartoon was that science and spirituality are both important. Science is the search for truth, and spirituality is the search for kind of meaning. It's philosophy. It's your inner, the depths of your psychology, and it's critically important. And I think at its best, religion is a place where people can explore that side of things. I think religion is great at building community, which is one of the most important things to being a human. I think it's great for tradition, which is one of the something that humans gravitate towards. And the point of that cartoon was that when science and spirituality, those two characters started, they were both doing good things. They were both exploring their sides of the thing in their own way.
Absolutely.
And then people start to identify with the books, their religion. They start to identify when the books start to talk about divinity, and they believe it, and they believe it with certainty. And and spirituality turns from a big question mark to fully certain ideas. Then people start to identify, and then a bad side of us kicks in, our tribal side, the side that if there's something sacred that we identify with, that someone insults or threatens, then we will go on the attack. We will hate them, and we will hurt them if we can. So religion has been hijacked by the worst qualities of humans, and the truth is, I just don't think it stood a chance. I think that that it was inevitable that with the current level of evolved humans are, I think it was inevitable that as we tried to tackle spirituality as an emerging species, we were going to end up in a troubled place with this kind of stuff. I just think it was inevitable, and I think that it's not just this battle against religion and science. I think it's actually a battle of tribal religion against humble spirituality and science, which should be on the same team together.
And the sacred values. I mean, Jonathan Haidt makes that argument that, what do you consider sacred can, determine so much. If you consider the search for the truth, then you claim the truthist, but the search for the truth is my sacred value, as opposed to, loyalty and tradition. Of course, you're going to have differences there.
Well, and I think that's one of the ways that you describe yourself, right? As a truthist. So we were wondering if you wanted to pitch your worldview out to the masses or / to us.
Yeah. I agree with you that I think that basically everyone holds something sacred because there's something that, if you have an inner conflict, one side of that conflict is going to win. And if that winner comes into contact with another motivation, then something's going to win there. And it's like this hierarchy. And eventually there's something that will always end up winning. And that's your sacred value, whether you realize it or not. And so I think accepting that we all have a sacred value, figuring out the way we've been living. Some people don't realize, oh my God, mine's actually been this and I haven't realized it. Being self-aware about what we hold sacred, is really important, and then making sure that we actually are proud of that jives with our kind of our inner code. So for me, the reason I just point to truth is because I feel like all the problems in humanity happen when we just get away from truth, and it's if you are chasing truth and accepting that you're chasing it, you never have it, but you're always chasing it. I think that puts you in a really good place. And so for me, that truth is definitely I would say also probably my sacred value in the end, deep down. And I think that if your sacred value isn't truth, it's because it's probably by definition, then it's some other dogma is taking its place. And I think that that's something people just have to consider if that's what's if it's not truth, then what is the dogma that is the sacred value in your life?
Right. No, absolutely. And I think we all share, all the people in this room share your worldview. But either way, it seems like God might be coming in the form of AI. And I don't know if you were into this before Elon Musk contacted you, which was probably like a shock, as you describe, and you talking about this and the way you talk about some of your conversations with Elon Musk is an awkward off. And the only thing I could think of was, back when I was in school, in high school, we had 2 landlines. So I would call like one person that didn't know each other in high school and a second person, like the cheerleader and the nerd. And like both people would think that they've called each other, and I'd hit conference call and mute and just laugh as this awkward conversation.
That is brilliant.
I mean, it was the funniest thing.
Yeah,
nobody had 2 lines, no caller ID. They were convinced they'd called each other, and like it's funny. A conversation would start. It would jockey for 5 minutes, and we would laugh in hilarity. And it sounds like am I capturing your conversations like with Elon as they start? Tell us like really what is an awkward off?
It is just 2 people competing for kind of who can make the conversation most uncomfortable. And it's really mostly my fault. I mean, he doesn't, he's just kind of doing his thing and is kind of waiting for me to take over the conversation since I was to be interviewing him. And I'm the one kind of freaking out. And then he doesn't make it easier by being super kind of like, just kind of gregarious and
charismatic,
just trying to kind of comfort me in that situation. So then I'm just kind of like, I'm just left like floundering in that. And then usually about 5 or 10 minutes in, it settles in and everything's really normal after that. But yeah, it's when you're talking to someone you admire who's kind of like a once in a generation kind of person, like it's not easy to be normal at first.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, and you say like he's like creepily logical, but gregarious. I mean, you mentioned a point where he was talking about, allotting time to, for a girlfriend and whether or not that he could take this on and the way you
creepily logical.
Yeah. That it was fascinatingly logical. And in some ways that, you even support him in saying if you don't allot enough time for your girlfriend, then you'll be a bad boyfriend. It was just brilliant. The stories about Elon.
It's funny though, because I think it's a lot of those qualities that actually like it's really all he's doing is he's not being delusional, and we think it's so weird because all of us think of romance and being like, oh, you don't think about that stuff, it just happens. I mean, that's a delusion. You're under a delusion that that kind of thing has some kind of like magical otherworldly component that we can't even understand. Just let it happen. But the truth is, it's not. It's all in our hands, and it's all just the psychology of 2 humans, living with each other or being in a relationship with each other. And the truth is, it is what he says it is. A lot of the time, when he would say something, and I'd say that's such a funny Elon way to say it, but then I'd say that's actually what's happening, and none of us really see it that way. And then I realized that I think this is part of what makes him so good at what he does is a lot of other things that we see kind of in some kind of just dogmatic way. We're just kind of repeating some kind of universal conventional wisdom that everyone kind of agrees on. And he just kind of cuts right through that and says what it actually is. And that's like a tremendous quality if you want to be an innovator or an entrepreneur or creative.
Right. And that he doesn't reason by analogy. That if somebody says, no one's ever created a company that's going to take somebody to Mars or fly people into space, but he doesn't think like that.
Exactly. Because that's just conventional wisdom is saying that. And he sees conventional wisdom for what it is, which is a Bible. It's a dogma. And it's a dogma that, like the Bible, has a lot of like good stuff in it. It's based a long time ago on stuff that was true. It has some very serious wisdom inside of it. But then there's with conventional wisdom, it then over time it becomes outdated. It becomes oversimplified, and it often is based on fear originally in the first place, or it's based on a world that's not here anymore, with problems that aren't here anymore, with opportunities that aren't the same that we have now. And so at that point, it's really nothing more than a mostly false dogma. And by just seeing it like that and saying, well, I'm not religious about the Bible, why would I be religious about the conventional wisdom Bible? You have this tremendous advantage in the world if you can just do that. And I think that very few of us naturally do it. You have to, realize that you're worshiping a Bible and that you're a disciple of a conventional wisdom Bible, and realize that is going to keep you inside the box most of the time, and it's going to limit your creativity and your ability to innovate and change things. So
yeah, innovating he is, no doubt. And you get to write about this. Like, he picked you to actually blog about this because you kind of are the expert at breaking things down and making them digestible for the masses.
I think it's important to let people know that we're talking about a specific 4-part series, I think even beyond 4 parts, that you wrote on your blog specifically at the behest of Elon Musk, and with an in-depth interview with him. So for those that haven't read it, it's brilliant, and you need to go out and read it on Wait But Why.
Absolutely. And I think that AI, Elon Musk is of the opinion that AI could be pretty dangerous. That, I think you advanced like a paperclip theory that maybe you can talk about, that, if AI goes rogue, and that Neuralink, your post on that, it's incredibly long and good. And when we get to the end, you see how Neuralink is potentially the solution to, the problem of AI.
Which
Could you summarize
Brian and I chatted about this, and I still don't get it. So you're going to have to.
I had a little background in neuroscience, but go ahead, because I find this absolutely fascinating, and your coverage on this was exemplary.
It took me a while too. I mean, the reason that it's hard is that in the world of 2017, it just makes no sense. It doesn't apply. His fears aren't currently scary to people. His solution makes no sense because the thing he's scared of isn't here. It's not something we even understand.
We're all familiar with Skynet. We all know.
I'll be back.
And so that's the thing is, the things we do know about AI usually mislead us. And so it's still, I still have trouble wrapping my head around it sometimes. But what I started to realize is that kind of the things he's been doing recently, OpenAI and Neuralink, these new things, are a 2-part solution. A 2-part potential solution to what he sees as kind of the AI danger. He sees it as, his first solution, his plan A would be, let's not build it. We're summoning the demon, he says. Let's just let's not do it. This is the one thing right now that could really wipe us all out. Why are we building something smarter than us such that we are no longer the rulers of the planet? Why are we, it's like a bunch of monkeys building humans. Why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And in the last couple of years, he's seen he's on a bunch of boards of AI companies. He follows this stuff really closely, and he has seen that this is happening. It's you can't stop humanity when it's economically incentivized to build and innovate you're not going to stop them. And with other things, the catastrophes are limited. I mean, you could say climate change is, that humanity's, innovation, looking, doing something without necessarily taking the consequences to account. But as bad as anything could be there, it's not anything close to the catastrophe that could happen if AI goes wrong. Climate change is not going to, unless, the most crazy scenario, it's not going to extinct the species.
Right.
It might set us back to the Stone Age. It might cause a bunch of refugees. It might cause a bunch of poverty. It could be really bad, but it's not going to extinct the species in like one quick mistake. AI could do that. And so he sees this as a huge danger, and he says, this is going to happen. And so what can we do now to try to at least mitigate the risk? Let's just do the best we can. Let's kind of go in the right direction at least. And so the first half of his solution is OpenAI, which is like, I compare it to if there's a magic wand factory and there's a few of them, and they're making them and whoever creates a magic wand first is going to have complete power over all other human beings. And he says, well, we don't want one company or one human to get that first. But we want to stop making magic wands. But if we can't, then now let's set up basically thousands of people making magic wands all at the same time. Let's just try to get many, many, many different magic wands being developed, and they'll be in many different hands, and they'll check and balance each other. And no one has ultimate power because everyone has magic wands. So that's one thing he's doing, is that OpenAI is basically saying, oh, right now, Facebook, Google, few of these small companies have huge leads in AI. And if they can get there first, they'll have a ridiculous amount of power. And of course, it could be worse. It could be something like, a country that we don't know or trust gets a hold of it first.
Like North Korea.
When I say I mean kind of general intelligent, super intelligent AI.
Right.
Something that's, as smart as a human across the board, but then much smarter, as opposed to just really good at one thing, like most of our AI is today.
Right.
And so he says, basically, let's just build this thing, OpenAI, which is going to do a lot of research and going to share everything we learn. So, and it's going to be this open source platform that is just basically anyone who wants to start creating AI can start from where we all have gotten to. They don't have to start from scratch. And of course, the danger there is that it allows the bad guys to get a head start too. But he thinks that's worth it overall for the fact that that at least it may solve the control problem where lots and lots of people will have it. Plus, when this great power is created, it will be created. If it's created by many, many different entities, it'll be created to serve overall like the desires of the masses as opposed to the desires of one company.
Yeah.
So that's the first half. But then you just say AI gets here. And now you still could have AI that is not in our control. And it just goes and wants to do its own thing. It kind of defies us, and we don't have control over it. And he thinks the way to fix that is that we need to be able to think with it as if it's part of our brain. If we can each have kind of an AI system, picture, Siri, but far, far, far more advanced, that's far smarter than a human. He thinks that if we can build a layer inside of a physical layer in our brains of electrodes that connect to our neurons that can send information in and out. So, one thing that could do is you could think to another human. You could think to a computer. You could open your refrigerator with your mind. There's a lot of things that you could do just in life that could be super cool. But what Elon's concerned with is he wants there to be an AI system that that knows us, that grows with us, that is built for us, and that we think with so much that it's like when you want a piece of chocolate cake, your limbic system wants a piece of chocolate cake, and your prefrontal cortex doesn't want you to have that, and thinks it's a bad idea, and you kind of argue in your head. That's not two entities arguing. It feels like you're just thinking, you're just deciding. And he thinks the same thing. If you're having a discussion with your AI, if you're arguing with it, and if you're disagreeing with it, or if you're agreeing with it, whatever, he thinks it's just going to feel like thinking. It's going to be us. We will be AI. So he basically is saying, not only do we want to all make sure we all are part of the creation of AI, we want to all become AI. And if we all are AI, we will have a lot of power to contain bad AI because we'll be AI ourselves. And secondly, it's not like the other. It's not like there's humans and then there's AI, because then AI can get sick of humans and go do it. It has its own goals and it's not concerned with us. But if we are AI, if much of the AI on this planet considers itself part of a human, it's much more likely that at least a lot of the AI on the planet will be incentivized, aligned with our values.
Yeah, I think that's what it's almost like to give morals, if you will, because it's evolved with us. It's like that Star Trek episode, if you're a TNG fan, the Binars, where this race evolved so heavily with computers, and their computer was almost ready to crash that they had, take these great pains to save it. So they have to hijack the Enterprise. And I'm like, wow, we're becoming the Binars. And to me, that was so cool. Because they were good people.
It was a nice shout out to the Trekkies out there.
It really was.
Good job, Brian.
And the thing, the reason this is so incredibly hard to wrap your head around, is because we don't know what it will be like to have AI here. We always, when you think about it, you're just going to think of a really fancy computer. That's not what it is. It's
like a personal assistant.
Yeah, it's just fundamentally different concept than anything any of us have ever experienced, or really anything we can imagine. So you can really only imagine things based on your own experience. And this is just, we can take a best crack at it, but we just don't know what it's going to be like. And, Elon is extremely good at visualizing stuff that most of us can't. So I believe him when he says, when he sees this and he's scared, I'm saying, he's probably closer to, the reality of the future than most of us. So I'm inclined to take it seriously. And when he says that, I think what's going to be critically important in the world of the future, not today's world, but what's going to be incredibly, mind-bogglingly important in the future is going to be that we have our brain as a high bandwidth connection to AI. Mm-hmm. And again, when I first heard that, I'm like, huh, why? And then the more I thought about it, the more I had a few long conversations with him about it, where I really tried to get to the bottom of why. And I had a few moments when it would really click, and I'd say, oh, of course, this makes so much sense. And then I'd lose it. It's like really hard to wrap your head around this. But, I think that he is often thinking on a level that I would need to work really hard to have it click for a second, that kind of level. The same levels that people like Einstein are on, that, I can think about relativity. And for a second, I'm like, oh, I get it, space-time. And then I lose it. I'm like, wait, what's space-time again? So it's like that to me. It's like this is so high level, trying to understand how to protect against a world that we really don't get, that I think it's really interesting.
But for our listeners out there, if you want to get close, definitely check out the Neuralink on Wait But Why, because it's an absolutely excellent review of this. And if you give it some time, and it will take a while to read, you'll get there. And it's really cool. You mentioned in one of your talks that you were, on What's Next for Tim Urban, that you were going to talk about some free speech or social issues. At least you hinted at that. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more? And, that you kind of have to talk about a brave world to enter into.
Yeah. Well, I'm currently working on that. And it's not that different than everything else we've been talking about. It's a conversation about truth versus dogma. Mm-hmm. And it's another reminder that we as a species we are prone to just fall into a blind tribalism. And even, it's like we all, people, a lot of the people I know, including myself, we say, I'm not religious. I don't do dogma. I'm science-minded. I hold truth sacred. And then something else comes up, like politics, and we don't realize that we're being fully religious people.
Right.
And it's like, we all of us, doesn't matter who we are, we all have to fight the urge to be dogmatic. All of us. And again, it's about what you hold sacred. It might not be the Bible, but maybe it's your political beliefs. Maybe it's your social beliefs. Maybe it's how you feel about an issue, a hot issue like abortion or climate change. Maybe it's maybe your dogma is your previous beliefs, things you came to in a scientist mode 10 years ago, and you just became stubborn, and you're so dug in now, and you hate the people that disagree, and you think they're stupid, and you're so dug in, you don't realize that that's become your Bible. Your Bible is your own previous, beliefs, and your ego is now attached to them, and you're just another religious person now. You've stopped taking new evidence. You've stopped being humble. So I think I mentioned this in the post, that it's funny how I keep writing different topics and coming to the same things. And so coming across the same themes here is kind of the part of our brain that knows it's 2017, that's super rational, in a battle with the part of our brain that thinks it's 50,000 BC and it needs to fit in with a tribe in order to survive. And that battle is kind of, I think, if you just take most things that humans struggle with, if you just boil it down, you end up at that same battle.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for that to be done.
Yeah,
that's excellent.
And Brian and I have focused very heavily on some of these topics in our past, I don't know, probably 10 guests that we've had on, and we actually have an incredible event coming up on September 30th in Milwaukee, which is the fourth iteration of what we call MythCon. So we have some amazing speakers that are going to be here. I don't know if you're familiar with Faisal Mutar or Asra Nomani, but they will be debating each other about Islam in the age of Trump. And we're also going to have a lot of other free-thinking speakers and really debaters, discussion panels, very popular YouTube personalities that are going to be coming to Milwaukee. Everyone kind of coalescing in one place in order to have some reasonable discourse.
And
yeah,
we can
I was going to use your catchphrase.
Sanely. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel like. It's okay to disagree, but I want to do it sanely. I don't want it to be in the middle of a knife fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of the people that you guys are talking to, I think you mentioned Faisal. Mm-hmm. I've gotten to know through my research a lot of really great thinkers throughout writing this post. And what you do find is some very brave, what I'm calling scientists out there, people who are dedicated to truth, and in the face of sometimes their careers being ruined. And, I find them very inspiring. And, if I have a tribe at all, it's those people. It's the people that are, that are fighting their own inner tribes person, all the time to try to remain objective and truthful and wise. And it's and so I think it's something that is needed so badly right now. And there's just I see again all these people that are really science minded most of the time. These smart people that when it comes to politics they lose it. They just and not only do they lose their objectivity and they lose their reason and they lose their humanity, but they lose their self-awareness. They don't realize they're doing it. You read their social media posts and you can see that they think they're being they have a perfect handle on truth and righteousness, and that they you just say wow, this person is normally so wise and they're just being so incredibly unself-aware. They don't see what they look like. They don't see what they're acting like right now. So I think it's a really important topic right now.
No, it really is. And they're in the fog, I think, is you say. In
occupying the moral high ground.
Yeah. If we can do it, if MM can, this is what we're striving for. But I mean, if we can follow the example of Tim Urban and say Jonathan Haidt, then we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I'm really into Jonathan Haidt right now. I'm really into Sam Harris, really into Glenn Lowry, really into, there's the Rubin Report. There's just a lot of people out there who, despite having their careers on the edge of being ruined at all times, are just persisting with reason. I don't agree with all of them. That's the point, is when I listen to these people, I disagree with a lot of what they have to say. It's not that I agree with all their views. It's that I appreciate their methods. Yes. I like how they think. Yes. So I think we need to really trumpet those people up so that people can start to look up to them as intellectuals.
Yeah, we actually had Dave Rubin scheduled to be at the conference and then had a scheduling conflict at the last minute. So that would have been fabulous. But that's the type of discourse we're going to be promoting. So yeah, if September 30th you're free, Tim, we would love to have you there.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, it's and if you've never visited Milwaukee, it is a gorgeous city. It's the gem of the Midwest. Yeah,
awesome. It sounds great.
We have a beach and everything. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Tim. We had a blast. We love your material. We would love to direct people to everything that you're putting out there. If nothing else, everyone go out and check out Wait But Why. Lengthy and incredible read. Every once in a while. Is that how you put it? Once every
sometimes.
Every sometimes.
And when I write a 250-page 50,000 word post on politics and social stuff, it's very rarely right now. So
Wow. That'll be epic. And for those driving their car, Google him on YouTube. There's a whole host of his speeches there that you don't necessarily need to watch the video because he's so good at explaining everything. Excellent. Or if you're in the garden.
Thank you, Tim.
well, thank you guys. This is great. It's fun talking.
Thank you for listening to Mythinformed. Mythinformed is brought to you by Mythicist Milwaukee. Producers Sean Frasick, associate producers Fritz Blondone and Kristen Whitaker Hood, engineer Josh Benishik, technical consultant Jason Lawson, and hosts Brian, Dimitri, Jacob, and Joseph. Every week we produce a new podcast that sheds light on religion, secularism, and mythology. If you enjoy this show, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/mythicist. Mythicist Milwaukee also brings major secular conferences and debates to the Milwaukee area, along with community events, both local and online. To support us in bringing future events, become a member at mythicistmilwaukee.com to receive member-only benefits. You can also visit mythicistmilwaukee.com and hit the donate button located at the bottom of each page to place a financial donation amount of your choice. And now, the closing theme, written and performed by Shelley Siegel.
There was a time when everyone believed Helios in the sun, Poseidon in the sea, Athena's wisdom and beauty, and Hades underneath, Isis of fertility, and ether of the Greeks. They all lie at rest, and who will be the next to die? You know they are all myths, and who will be the next to die? There was a time when everyone believed Helios in the sun, Poseidon in the sea, Athena's wisdom and beauty, and Hades underneath, Isis of fertility, and ether of the Greeks. They all lie at rest, and who will be the next to die? You know they are all myths, and who will